As our world hangs in the balance, two heroes have been charged with one simple mission: recap and review comic books. On today's episode, we're talking about Amazing Spider-Man Issue 1. Only problem is, one of them has never read a comic book in his life. You've never read one of the comics?
No.
Wow, okay.
I've seen a physical book before, but I just looked at the cover.
But don't worry, Gil has done the research, and he'll help them along the way. Oh yeah, by the way, Peter Parker. He's Spider-Man.
Okay.
The drama. Because we need those stories to get through the day, through the hard times. This is my story, the one I play in my head while everything goes wrong. The action. He sees him in lizard form, he starts freaking out. He starts telling everybody, "Don't panic!"
Spider-Man, I will stop you with my black goo.
I'm not sure what that was, but hey, there's movie news too. Venom. Coming to a theater near you this Friday. Are you gonna see it?
Eventually.
Gil Reads Comics. Available in the Apple Podcasts app or any other podcast app today. Just search Gil Reads Comics. That's Gil Reads Comics. See the show notes for a link. Welcome to Saulcast. This week we're talking about Season 4, Episode 10 of Better Call Saul. This episode is titled Winner. Guess we'll talk about it. Sorry, I'm just feeling a little bit, we lost someone special tonight. Fred, the guy that ran the travel agency. I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
Yeah, whatever.
Gil, how about we pour out an old Hefeweizen for our man Werner.
Yeah, you'll notice if you look at my video, I've got the lights dimmed a little bit, so you can't see the tears rolling down my cheeks.
I have some candles lit. But it's just not
sometimes you watch this show and you feel great. Other times you finish and you wonder, you close your laptop and then you just stare into the abyss and you just wonder why even go on.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to Saulcast this week. Be sure to tune in for the full take in just a couple of days.
This does feel more than usual. This feels like an episode where I'm going to have to take a couple days to process. And, we always come to the full take with, better baked ideas. And this feels even more important than a typical episode. A lot to process.
Yeah, you could say that again. Right off the bat, one of the first things I noticed was as Mike was walking, kind of stalking behind Werner as he was going out to appreciate one last look at the stars. The way the camera was looking at Mike as he was walking reminded me exactly the way it looked when Jesse was walking to go take care of Gale. Do you remember when he was preparing himself? And I thought about that as it was happening. And what do we cut to right after Mike does the deed?
Jesse.
Gale.
Yeah.
It's good to hear some laughter.
Yeah.
I get sad thinking about this.
I thought about that because they do usually try and give us some levity, even in the darker episodes. And I wonder if that is part of the reason they brought Gale in at the end there. Because you've got Gus and Mike just in the darkest moment of their lives. And Gale is like, all right, I'm going to go upstairs now. And then he bumps into Mike and he's like, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gale's got no idea.
Yeah.
In essence, the same fate awaits him, but for different reasons.
Yeah, that's. I really want to revisit the Jesse scene now before the
It
full
looks
take
so
and see that
similar.
comparison.
It looks so similar. Like, just basically the way that the camera just follows them at this angle as they're walking with the gun in hand, preparing to do something they don't want to do. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it was intentional because they cut right from that to Gil.
Yeah, this is one where I'd like to go and listen to the Insider podcast, which I listen to here and there, but I definitely want to hear them talk about some of their choices and decisions in this one. I also think they probably tend to be more open in the finale because they're less worried about giving stuff away. So I'd be interested to hear if they comment on that comparison.
Yeah, just listen to them after us.
Right. That's understood.
Yeah.
No, they're our friends. They're not. I wouldn't consider them competitors.
Yeah, me neither. We're in a different league.
I was ready to declare victory on my part for having actually predicted something accurately, which was Werner begging for his life when Mike goes to kill him. Well, but I was a little bit wrong about that because he was very graceful, but he still he twisted Mike's heart, I think, as much as he could have, but never resorted to outright begging.
Yeah, I thought that you had called it. As I was watching, I was like, oh, it's happening. Like, this is exactly what Gil said would happen. Or what you wanted to happen, which was to hear him begging and pleading for his life.
Michael, please, look into your heart, Michael.
Look into your heart.
And now I feel bad. I feel bad saying that now.
Yeah, but so he handled it very gracefully. You know, he makes sure that his wife will at least hear something. And then he asks, what about my men? This is the first time he called them men, not boys.
Oh, wow. But I would just pause for a second. You said at least his wife got to hear something? She got to hear him yell at her that he doesn't want to see her.
No. She is going to hear a story, at least to explain his disappearance.
Right.
Okay. He had 2 questions before Mike took care of him. Or he had 3 questions. First, what's gonna happen with my wife? Like, what are you gonna tell her? Second, what about my men? And third, is there truly no other way? I thought for a second that Mike was indicating maybe there is another way.
No, I knew he wouldn't. I mean, I knew they played a little trick there where he hesitated.
Yeah.
And just imagine being in Werner's shoes where your life hangs in the balance on whether or not this one man will crumble in that moment. But Mike has learned the lesson by now, right? No half measures. He knows his role here. One thing I kept thinking as I watched this is in a lot of ways, this is Mike's fault. We joked last episode, I think, about he keeps trying to make these implications. He's trying to have Werner read between the lines. You work for somebody very serious. You know what will happen if you run, right? Something like that. But just tell him, if you run, if you keep pushing this idea that you want to leave and visit your wife, you will die. Yeah. If he had said that to him, he might be alive right now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And I don't really get why he had to use any innuendo at all.
Yeah. It just felt like that's sort of how he's used to operating. And he feels like he has to be secretive about all this, which is probably true most of the time. But you're in a warehouse in the middle of nowhere with a group of people that all know they're doing something that is against the law. There was no need to be unclear about that, ambiguous.
Yeah. But by the same token, as you remind me that he did give these vague warnings to him, even though he could have been more stern and more upfront, he also did, I think, say enough that Werner should have got the message, even if he didn't realize that Mike was alluding to the message, you will die if you cross us in any way. He still gave him a strong enough warning that he shouldn't have done this, and ultimately, I think it'll be hard for Mike to sleep at night after this, but bottom line is Werner was basically aware of what he got himself into, and he made a decision.
The tragic thing is that he wasn't aware. And one of the hardest lines to hear in the series is in this scene when Mike asks him, I want you to tell me, what was your game plan here? What did you expect to happen? And what did Werner say? He said, I thought I would come back and you would be, my friend Michael would be angry at me for a moment, but then we'd get back to work. He really didn't get it.
How much of that was him just putting out some wishful thinking there and hoping to manipulate Mike, and say, like, look how naive and innocent I was. I never could have expected this, and I thought we were friends. How much of it is that? How much of it is like he truly was that naive as this was happening?
I think if he wasn't that naive, he never would have run. We saw him at that hotel laying there, happy as could be, happy as a clam, waiting for his wife. I can't, there's no other explanation besides he was naive. He really did not get how much of a threat he was actually under. I think there's no other explanation for his actions.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to support what you just said. It's just disappointing because then it's really hard not to just look at it and say, why couldn't they be more upfront about the threat?
Now I'm trying to think if in Breaking Bad, was Mike more upfront than he was here? Can we draw a connection and say that he learned some lesson here and he's not going to, he's going to be very clear with people from now on when death is an option or on the table?
I have to imagine that he was more clear, because if we think about it, Mike's first instinct here was to try to persuade Gus out of it, right? Oh, he said twice, I think, that there's got to be a better, way to handle this. But both times Gus basically said that. I think he said this conversation is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you get credit where credit is due. At least Gus didn't make Mike waste any words or any dignity trying to plead for Werner's life. But ultimately, Mike was carrying out an order. And this is his first time, as far as I can think of off the top of my head, this is his first time killing for Gus. If Mike was operating alone and doing his own thing, he might have addressed this differently. But from now until we see him through Breaking Bad, he's working for Gus, and he's likely going to... I think he's got to be more clear about the threat and the gun in the room in the future.
Agreed, and I hope Mike has learned that lesson. Lalo, what was his deal this episode? Why did he become so fixated on following Mike around?
That's a great question. So I don't know why he picked Mike out in particular, but we got to see so much about what's really inside Lalo in this episode. First of all, we see that he is very dedicated. He's got very detailed notes about all the comings and goings at the chicken farm, where distribution center, all that stuff. He's logging every truck that goes in and out. Then he's actually there to witness them getting the news that some stuff is going down, and so that everyone's mobilizing. Maybe he just fixated on Mike because he looked like he stood out from the rest of the crew that he was spying on, because the rest of them just looked like generic henchmen. They were getting into these big vans and stuff, whereas I think Mike just got into his own car. He probably looked a little more significant than the rest of them, and maybe also his age or something made him look like an easier target to follow. Not clear to me why Lalo picked Mike precisely, but we got to see how focused he could be, and we also got to see some fun cat and mouse. And
we learned that Lalo's a complete scumbag.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a total psychopath.
Right, he killed Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
He reminded me. I thought of this comparison the day after we recorded, and I was kicking myself for not thinking of it sooner. But he reminded me of Joe Pesci from Goodfellas, where he's so much fun to watch. He's erratic. He's got this big smile, but then on a dime, he can whip out his gun and shoot somebody.
Where he's like, cut off his finger. The little one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we saw that side of him this episode.
Yeah.
He's also very spry.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it's like he seems to act like just the world is a playground and he can just do whatever the hell he wants. And like 1 second he's talking to the clerk, the next second he's in the ceiling. He just drops down in there, points a gun at him. We cut to him looking through the security footage and we see, oh yeah, that dude's dead. I can see his feet in the corner. And someone's trying to get in, and he's just waving them away.
Yeah.
And it's like
it's no big deal.
I just committed murder. There's a dead body on the floor. Any sane person would not be in that situation. But if a sane person somehow found themselves in that situation, they would be losing their minds and panicked.
He clearly has a lot of experience with killing, so it is just a part of his everyday life. It's just no big deal whatsoever.
Yeah. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, that's a Salamanca.
Yeah. Just wants to kill everybody.
Yeah. So he has something in common with good old Uncle Tio Hector.
What did you think when you saw Mike take that stick of gum?
Okay, so I was so excited because, well, first, okay, he reaches in the glove compartment. He reaches right past his gun, which is what you're sure he's going to grab, and he picks up some gum. He starts chewing it, and I think maybe this is just his thing, you know? This is what he likes to do when he's getting into a car chase or some kind of sticky situation. Then we see he keeps eating more gum. He just won't... Oh, sticky situation.
Yeah.
He keeps eating more gum. He's collecting... he's got the wrapper. I knew he was going to do something awesome with it, and I just didn't know what it was, but I was really excited.
As soon as I saw the card slot, I thought he's sticking that gum in there.
Oh.
And then he didn't. And I thought, oh, okay. And then he grabbed his second piece of gum, and I thought that he was going to chew it up into a big wad and then maybe chuck it at the window of the guy falling. Just whip it at the window.
It's too bad, maybe if he had a banana, he could have thrown the peel out and just the whole car would have exploded when it drove over.
He would have, he took the wad of gum out of his mouth, and then he rolls the window down. He says, chew on this, and throws the gum.
That would have been amazing.
And then he just smiles to himself, and then Lalo just keeps following him, and he goes, I really thought that would work.
I wish that happened. But his real plan was almost as good. So, yeah, once he started forming it into the shape of a card, and he's driving up and he's leaving the lot, then it was obvious what he was doing. But I can't claim any clever forethought about that.
Well, my initial thought was right. I thought he was going to stick the gum in there.
Yeah.
And do you think that it was a sly little joke from the writers that not only was it not the gun he was reaching for, it was the gum? I mean, two very similar words.
Yeah, I took note of that wordplay also, and maybe it was a little homage to Mike because we know now how much he enjoys wordplay.
That's true, yeah. The dirty half dozen.
Yeah. So he likes those kinds of jokes, and maybe that was all part of the irony for him. I also thought, and this is maybe a stretch, but I found some irony in the fact that he was going to a parking lot and he had like an automated ticket thing to get out because his job was to be the human version of that.
That's true. So this is also a commentary on the changing times.
Yeah, that was definitely a necessary component of this episode. I think this was probably something more coincidental, but I thought it was funny that he could be replaced just by, a machine like that.
Not in his new job. Except there was, I was at the airport a few weeks ago, and when I got off my flight, I walked outside to the passenger pickup area, and I saw this big triangle-shaped metallic object with lights spinning around it, and it was going.
Whoa! Wait, was it in the sky or on the ground?
It was on the ground. It was taller than me.
You didn't see a UFO.
No, it was just a UO,
An
unidentified object. And I couldn't tell if it was, I don't remember if it was staying in place or if it was moving around, but it was very bizarre. It was like 2 a.m. I got close to it, not too close, for it to be dangerous, but close enough that I could see some of the detail, and I saw a few words written on it. It was like night, metal night or something like that. I forget exactly what it said. When I Googled it, it turns out this is an automated security robot. So that thing maybe could have done Mike's current job.
Yeah, maybe he could have done it better than Mike.
Like, Werner, halt. Werner, stop. Say goodbye to your wife.
Werner, enjoy one last look at the stars.
Aren't they nice? Are you sure there's no other way?
I understand. Anything else on Lalo? He's crazy.
He's crazy. I don't know what else to say about him.
He just rammed that guy who was in front of him.
Yeah, that reminded me, again, just coincidental, but Walt, when he was driving with Hank and they were on their way to the laundromat, he needed to stop them from getting there. He just took a sharp left and crashed right into somebody.
Yeah. So much revolves around that place.
Yeah, we said it last time, but there were all the blood, literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into building that place you never would have known.
Right. And neither does Gil, which is why it's so funny seeing him standing in there.
We've never seen Gil so oblivious before.
Yeah, and that's saying something.
One other thought on Lalo is that Nacho became a complete non-entity the last, 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. I was wondering, where is he in all this?
He started to become more of a character when he returned, but the moment Lalo showed up, he took over everything, completely overshadowed him.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see how that develops next season.
Do you after this episode, do you have any more thoughts about what it is that will connect all of this to Jimmy? Because we know something's got to happen there because of in Breaking Bad, and we bring this up every time now, but that's because this is one of the few anchors in the future we have to try to understand what's happening here. And it's the fact that when Walter and Jesse kidnapped Saul Goodman very early on, when we first come to meet him as a character in Breaking Bad, he doesn't know who took him. He thinks it was Lalo or someone who was sent by Lalo, and he says it wasn't me, it was Ignacio, a.k.a. Nacho. We still don't know what that is. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on it.
My only thought is that at some point, Nacho is going to go to Jimmy for help. And it's going to be help that in some way is against Lalo. maybe as Lalo grows in power, Nacho starts to essentially be under his thumb and asks Jimmy for help. Maybe Lalo finds out about it, or Jimmy suspects that Lalo found out about it, and Jimmy tries to throw Nacho under the bus. But I don't know if we have enough information to know any more detail than that. But that's my feeling.
Yeah, I agree. And the prospect of Jimmy having to go up against a character like Lalo is terrifying. Because he has no idea
Even
what he's
more
up
terrifying. Yeah, it's more terrifying than Jimmy versus Tuco.
Yeah, it really is. Because Lalo is crazy and apparently somewhat intelligent.
Right, he's Tuco with brains.
Yeah. And looks.
You said it.
Someone had to.
We were all thinking it.
Speaking of Jimmy, he's Saul Goodman.
Yeah, I hate to talk about it that way. So it always feels kind of cheesy to say he was Jimmy and this is the moment when he became Saul Goodman. But man, it felt like it. He literally walked away from Kim and said, "It's all good, man." And he's on his way to change his name to Saul Goodman. The way that Kim looked at him, I mean, she was, I can't even process what I just witnessed. We've been talking about what is a thing that's going to push Kim away from Jimmy. And we kept thinking it was going to be something criminal, that Jimmy goes down a dark path. But it turned out to be a lot more powerful than that, assuming this is where they break. If it is, then it was her reacting to how emotionally bereft he is. I don't know if that's the right word, but she's disturbed by what she saw in him, which I think is a much more interesting reason for her to walk away. And it makes a lot more sense. When you love someone, I think you're over forgiving, even if they do something bad here and there. But the look on her face to me was, I don't know who this person is, or if they're even human.
Yeah. It's like, not only did he fooled everyone in the room, including me, about his feelings over all of this, but he didn't even tell me. So he already feels like someone other than who I thought. He feels like a different person. And then I find out he's getting his name legally changed, and he never spoke with me about it. It's like, what reason did he have for keeping that a secret from her? I don't even think he did it on purpose. It's just like, it didn't even occur to him to discuss it with her. Like, he just brought it up.
I think to him, normal. It's killing people is to Lalo as getting your name legally changed is to Jimmy McGill.
Yeah, there's a wire.
To him, it was just a matter of fact. He needed to do it, so it wasn't even worthy of being a topic for discussion.
Yeah, there's like some kind of screw loose in it. There's a whole bundle of characters on this show, and there's just like a switch that's missing in their brain, or some kind of wire that's crossed, where it's like they don't have a conscience. And then you have people like Mike who have one, and they're just constantly being tested and pushed and having it degrade over time.
Yeah. And speaking of conscience, so we were debating what is Kim going to do to help Jimmy, and we thought that it was going to be something over the line, not quite legitimate, but maybe not something outright illegal that would put her in danger. And I think that's where she landed. All the stuff that she helped Jimmy with, trying to trick people into thinking that he was really grieving over Chuck. It's 6 episodes ago, I never would have imagined that Kim would do something like that. But the lengths that she went to, and I think the key here is that it was for Jimmy. I don't know if we realized how supportive she is of him, so much so that she'll compromise her morals.
Yeah. But I think in the end, you know what? In the end, she turns out to be a little naive. because she keeps thinking that she can have her cake and eat it too, in the sense of, I'll compromise my morals here, but then I'll kind of grab back onto them at a later point. And that's where she made a mistake this episode, because look at the great lengths they went through to convince everyone that Jimmy felt all this grief. And she was right on board the whole time. She was helping plan how to feign this emotion. Then when Jimmy did it too well during his hearing, she was swept up in it and got convinced, and then felt hurt when it turns out that that was a fake. Even though she was playing right along with it the whole time until Jimmy did it too well.
Yeah, she kind of fell into the same trap that we as viewers fell into early on this season, which is there's going to be an emotional reckoning for Jimmy. There has to be. Even though he has hated his brother was not good to him. We kept thinking, it doesn't matter. He's got to fall apart at some point. We were waiting for it, the same way she was. Even after we've watched him fake it, we thought, you know what, there's got to be something psychologically going on where he's bottling up his emotions. He's got to let him out at some point. And they gave us the scene where he does. And like fools, at least me, I fell for it.
Me too.
And then you find out that it was all BS.
Yeah, I thought he was embellishing, but I thought at the root it was being driven by some real emotion. And either that's true, and afterward he tried to kind of undo it by claiming it was all part of his act, or more likely, it all was part of his act to begin with. I think that's probably what it was. I don't think he feels the things he said he felt.
Agreed. There was a moment for me, too, when he was explaining it to Kim, and he was like, there was just this flow, this energy moving through me. I half expected Kim to say, yes, Jimmy, those are called feelings.
It's like he just discovered that really his true passion in life is to become an actor.
When he was in the car, and he was screaming, no, no, no. Was that legitimate?
I mean, there was no one else there.
And that's what's funny is there's so many times that he's pulled out the rug from under us like this, where you think he's getting emotional and it turns out he's manipulating someone. Even in this scene, I was so skeptical that in a way it bothered me because I couldn't fully invest in what he was feeling because I thought maybe he was faking it. I was so skeptical of him that in the trunk of his car, you see an object. And I thought, is that a cell phone? Did he accidentally, pretend to accidentally leave his phone on so people would hear him crying in the car? That's what my mind was going to. And yeah, I didn't know if it was real or not. And but even though I was skeptical in that scene, once we got to the courtroom, I was fully invested and I bought it totally.
Yeah. And I think in the scene when he was punching the steering wheel and just screaming no, I think that just had to do with the stuff with the scholarship and everything like that got him thinking about how everything he was saying, how someone like him can't get ahead in the world without taking shortcuts and that he needs to embrace this, but then it's just this constant uphill battle and he was just reaching a breaking point of frustration.
I think that's even giving it too much credit. I think that's putting too much weight on it. I think literally he was upset because he pieced it together. No matter what he says, he's not going to get his license back. And he was just frustrated that he's not getting it back. I don't even know if it was all connected to the uphill battle he's faced his whole life. But that might honestly just be me overreacting to the final scene because he's not totally emotionless, right? He's not a sociopath. In fact, we saw his whole monologue to that child where he was talking about the uphill battle and the fact that you can never, without taking shortcuts, they're always going to put you down. You're always going to be that person. So maybe I'm being a little hard on Jimmy, and he was feeling something more than I can't have my license.
Maybe. It's somewhere in the middle, probably. I thought it was very funny the way he says in his speech, This is when I was becoming pretty sure that it was all a ruse. When he says, if you decide that I get to be a lawyer, I'll do everything in my power to be worthy of the name Gil. And then he says, if you decide I'm not, it doesn't matter. I'll try to be the best man I can be. And in both of those, I saw some play on his name, because first of all, he says, I'll be worthy of the name McGill. Okay, well, we know he does not use that name, right? So he's not doing everything he can to be worthy of the name McGill, because even when he becomes a lawyer, he's Saul Goodman. So he has no name to be beholden to. Then on top of that, he says, even if I don't get the law license back, I'll try to be the best man I can be. And that just made me think of Goodman. Saul Goodman. So to me, both statements were kind of pointing toward something that was disingenuous about all of this.
Yeah, and that also probably points to how confident he was by that point, where he's like, let me have a little fun with this while I've got them in the palm of my hand.
Yeah, and in some sense, the fact that he can improvise that on the spot, he's extremely talented.
He could be an actor.
An actor, for crying out loud.
The last thing that I want to say about this episode is that it felt like, people overuse this phrase when they compliment an episode of television. Felt like a series finale. It felt like it was making a final statement on a lot of characters. Saul Goodman, this could easily have been the period at the end of the Jimmy McGill sentence. We see Mike learn a very hard lesson. It feels like I can't believe we're going to get more of this, and I can't wait to see where it goes next.
I can't believe we have to wait a year now.
Oh, God, yeah. I've been dreading this. The season was flying by. I've been dreading this all season. It's over.
Yeah. Could this get worse? Could this get any worse?
You know what? We'll watch Lodge 49 instead. From now on, Saltcast is going to cover Lodge 49.
You're on your own. I have nothing against that show. I have not looked at it, but
I've just seen a lot of commercials.
Yeah, I see a lot of commercials. I just don't like that they kind of trick you into watching it, because they put it the way they put it in the schedule, at least on YouTube TV. They slip it in as though it's part of the episode, even though it isn't.
Yeah. I have a few times. I'm fast forwarding through the commercial, and then I'll hit play too soon and watch 20 seconds of Lodge 49 an ad before it goes back to Better Call Saul. And okay, that wasn't part of the show.
This the one silver lining, I guess, of the fact that Game of Thrones got delayed until January is that I have something to look forward to in this time. Because if that was ending, if that aired at its normal time, it would be ending by now, or it would have ended already, and then Better Call Saul would be ending, and then I'd have nothing.
And then I have nothing.
Yeah.
So just every Monday night at 9 p.m., I'm going to sit on the couch and stare at a wall for an hour in respect for Better Call Saul.
And a moment of silence for Werner.
Yeah.
Let's end on a positive note.
I'm going to go grab a... Yeah, all right. Positive note.
Go ahead.
Jimmy and Chuck doing karaoke.
Yeah, that was funny. I didn't think he'd be able to talk Chuck into it.
Yeah, if you ignore the cloud of despair over it, just put that aside. Keep your eyes on the ground, ignore that you know where it's going, and enjoy the moment. Jimmy and Chuck were singing together, and ignore the part where Chuck took the mic and sort of hogged it, and he's even better at Jimmy than singing. Ignore that part. There was a moment there, at least a moment of joy, I thought.
And then, you know what? When they were in bed, first of all, I assumed they would have their own beds, so it was very funny when they ended up getting in the bed together. Crashing back at the house. And it was great when they were just both looking up at the ceiling singing together.
Yeah.
Put them on a level playing field for once.
Maybe to you and I are brothers, like Chuck and Jimmy. Maybe we should sing together a little bit. And what better song than, we saw some karaoke today. We saw Gale. Standing there alone.
The ship is waiting.
All systems a go. Are you sure? Controller's not convinced. But the computer has the evidence. The countdown starts. 4, 3, 2, 1. Earth below us, drifting, falling, floating, weightless.
I didn't know all the words, I'll be honest.
That's all right. That was fun. I feel good now. Now I feel good.
Yeah.
And then when we do the full take, I'll feel bad again. I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
And this is Saulcast. Instant Take. Hey, we just watched the season finale of Better Call Saul. We've only got one more full take to do this season. Before we record that episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the finale and the season as a whole. So if you have anything you want to share, any questions, any theories about where it goes from here, or just in general how you felt about the season, write into us, saulcastbros@gmail.com. You'll see a link in the show notes as well. And a heartfelt thank you from me and Adam for being such great listeners all season long. And it's not over. We've still got at least one more episode to do, but I just wanted to once again thank you all. And we've had a lot of fun doing this, so we appreciate it.
We certainly have, and I thank you all.
And I thank you as well.
Ding, 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 ding.
Last chance to look at me, Hector. Also, thank you for listening to us. I can't get that accent down.
Thank you for listening. Well, the problem is, his accent's subtle at times, and other times it isn't.
Yeah. All right, let me try this one. My name is Werner. All right, we can just wrap it up.
Ooh, my name is Werner. Blah.